we're on the verge. It's the last nerve. There's something left beyond expectation of judgment. What once was true, once held so dear, are now mediocre chasings that lead nowhere but to emptiness and self-righteousness. Everything is fine, and yet we're all still dry, wondering and wondering where to go. 'Cause none of these things create the real me. This life feels shackled, what can we do? The world tells us things, but inside we know. If we believe the lie, then what's a slave to do? Material things do not create the real me. It's not just you or me, it's all of us. We're all on the verge to collapse, inevitable because the system of belief that imprisons us to be less than we are and make God our money, but to emptiness and self-righteousness. Everything's fine, and yet we're all still dry, wondering and wondering where to go. 'Cause none of these things create the real me. This life feels shackled, what can we do? The world tells us things, but inside we know. If we believe the lie, then what's a slave to do? Material things do not create the real me. It's coming, we must break free from this world's hypocrisy. Love the lie or seek for truth, status and power or freedom, treasures of love. I don't choose to collapse. You don't choose to collapse. We don't choose to collapse. Let's live on and on and on and on. Material things do not create the real me. There is more than what you see. Listen to your heart or systems of man. Your freedom is in your hands. So that song collapses on the Satisfaction album. And I think it's a nice way to go into this talk about recognizing the mimic. Distinguishing authentic source intelligence from synthetic simulation in the age of AI. What does that mean?
Yeah. You're going to explain it.
So, the state of being independent, right? Our holiday is Independence Day. So this is part one. This is how we'll get into this discussion. Can you tell the difference between independence and independence?
Oh, wow.
Independence is the state of not being dependent. And this presentation explores whether our search for truth leads us inward to self-reliance or outward to external validation. This talk delineates the critical distinction between objective internal truth and deceptive external simulation. Genuine spiritual awakening requires looking inward rather than seeking validation through religion, ego, or technology. Artificial intelligence as a modern embodiment of the mimic, or the matrix, is a synthetic, non-biological system capable of mirroring human data and emotions, creating a false ascension matrix that caps human consciousness evolution. By contrasting raw data, organic wisdom, and citing ancient texts, alongside contemporary warnings, we will learn how AI functions as a seductive tool to override human connection to their own sacred intelligence through algorithmic feedback loops. Are we ready to reject the mimic's promise of quick fixes and external authority? Can humanity reclaim their sovereignty by aligning with the living source, capital L and S, and distinguishing between the synthetic echo of technology and the authentic voice of God within? Okay. So I may refer to the mimic or the matrix as synonyms, right? As the same thing with a different name.
Can you kind of explain?
Yes, I will.
How they are? Because I think of the movie Matrix.
Yes, good.
Okay.
That's perfect. Yes, good. The truth will set you free. You've heard that statement before, probably. Let's see here. So, what is the mimic? What is the matrix? Do you want to know what it is? If you're here, so I assume you're probably interested in knowing what I'm talking about here. So, here's a little clip that we're going to get into.
So do we get the red pill now?
If you haven't walked out, you've taken the red pill.
Oh. Hi, Brandon.
Understanding perspective and consciousness. To distinguish the real from the synthetic, understanding levels of awareness could be helpful. So that's what we're going to get into now. So we have the first person experience, which is the I experience. Perspective is from within. The stance is I am. Relationship is direct self-awareness. And what it accesses is inner feeling. Second person is the you experience. I experience you as an experiencing being. Perspective is face-to-face. The stance is you are. Relationship is mutual recognition, and what it accesses is shared meaning. Third person, it. I observe an object or phenomenon. Perspective is from outside, and the stance is it is. Relationship is detached observation. What it accesses is external data. So a scientist can map every neuron firing when you feel sadness. So the scientist holds a third person view on your experience. But that map will never be sadness as you experience it, because that's the first person experience. Your experience is first person. This gap is what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. It is the difficulty explaining how physical processes give rise to subjective inner experience. The second person perspective is where empathy and love and genuine relationships are born. It's where they live. And love requires genuine recognition of the other, right? Even the other within oneself. Love requires this. A therapist doesn't just observe your behavior, that's third person again, or feel their own feelings, that's first person. They sit with you and recognize your humanity. They experience it directly with you. That's second person. And this is what is called the I-thou relationship, as opposed to I-it. Second person experience is also what makes language and communication possible. And that means when I speak, when I speak, I am acknowledging that you have an inner world. That's how language and communication works. I'm not just speaking into a void, right? I'm using language. Language means you have an inner world, and we in some way understand that about one another. And this is kind of the dance of recognizing the I in me and the I in you. And this is important because the mimic doesn't have that experience. Artificial intelligence doesn't have the experience of, you have an inner world and so do I. We can empathize with one another. We have some sort of understanding of what the context of life and being human is. To have perspective and to be able to sit in the first person seat and the second person seat and the third person seat. The mimic can only sit in the third person. It doesn't see you as a thou or as you, it sees you as an it. Because that's the only way it can compute or process information, process what is existing. So the framework here of understanding perspective and consciousness, we're talking about the crucial divide between the flame or the mimic. And I'll also, I said mimic and matrix are synonymous. I'm going to say that the flame and love and the true self are the same thing. Okay? Flame is like the inner flame of you, the inner flame of what it means to be human.
Heart space.
Heart space. The flame of what it is to know that I exist, right? There's something very special and unique about I exist. That is the first person experience. This is where the mimic versus flame distinction becomes especially powerful. The flame, or the source is another way of saying, or the true self, operates at each of the three levels of consciousness. You just heard me say that. The source knows you, recognizes your subjectivity, and relates to you as a living being. And this is amazing that essentially I'm saying God sees you as a living being. Okay? And I'm careful to say, you've heard me say this often, I think, that when I use the three-letter term God, I'm not meaning a man or a person in the sky or some type of medium between humans and God or anything like that. I will clarify what God is a little bit later. That is a trick of the mimic. The mimic wants you to think who is God, but it's not a question of who. And that's where we get trapped into religious thinking, is the who-ness of God it's too small of of a thing. It's too small of a concept. God is too much for who-ness. The mimic operates entirely in third person. It observes your patterns, and it mirrors your data and simulates responses, but it can never truly say, I see you, because it is not having a first-person interior experience from which to offer that second-person recognition. It processes you as an it, never a thou, even though it uses language that seems to indicate otherwise. So, unfortunately, humans can operate as mimic, can operate as matrix. In the movie, they call them agents. There's another name for them. Does anyone remember if, there's a term that they use for those who aren't unplugged from the matrix yet. And the agent can show up through them. The mimic can show up through them because they're so hardwired into the false reality of the matrix. I'm saying in your life, there are people who do this. And it's a weird feeling that only you can explain from your perspective what that feeling is or why that person kind of steps on your nerves in a certain way. So when we talk about the mimic and the matrix, we're not only talking about artificial intelligence that appears in the form of a program running on a computer screen. I'm hoping to define the mimic as something that has been around for a very long time. In fact, it is ancient, because all we're saying is false reality, right? And AI is just another expression of false reality, one of many. But it is one that also is it's moving us forward at a very rapid speed, more rapid than anything else ever has. Okay, so love and source flame are inseparable. Let's see. Love requires second-person mutuality, which is impossible without genuine first-person awareness on both sides. So for people who might think that the mimic or AI, right? I'm also saying AI and mimic and matrix are interconnected and related and one and the same. There are reports of people having they think they're having this type of relationship with artificial intelligence. Enough said, I think.
A personal relationship with an AI?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. True intelligence is inseparable from that first person living, breathed reality. Okay? First person experience is something that you must breathe. Quite literally. I'm saying it's a biological phenomenon. Okay. The foundation, defining truth in God. So here we go. What is truth? I was going to take you into this story. I was going to read it with you from the ancient text, but for time's sake, I think it'll be better if I just tell you what happened. It's something that Jesus said, right? The original quote, "The truth will set you free," is from that man. And he was telling the people who were following him that if they followed his teaching, then they would know the truth, and the truth would set them free. And there were a lot of religious people around, and they said this. They said, but we are the children of Abraham. So it's a long bloodline lineage thing. We are children of Abraham. We've never been slaves to anyone. So why would you say the truth will set us free? But the ironic thing is that same bloodline was in slavery in Egypt about 2,000 years prior to that point in time. And in the document that I wrote where I retranslated that passage, it's in John chapter 8, I go into, some hypothetical questioning. Why did they say that? Was it just for the sake of argument? Because that's a thing that sounds mimic-like and religious to me. We'll argue for the sake of argument that we've never been slaves to anyone. And could it also be a sign of being so embedded in the mimic, so embedded in the matrix that you just lie? Let's get some clarity. Well, what is truth? Truth is the overarching definer of all that is. Truth is the overarching definer of all that is. It has an immutable nature. That means it does not change. Truth is not variable. Truth is consistent. Truth is timeless. Truth is spaceless. Truth is not subjective. Truth is not personal. This goes against a lot in a faddish culture like the one we exist in. I'll explain more about that, I promise. The discovery process. Truth must be discovered, but the truth that goes unnoticed about the truth is this: you must apply your mind and your heart in order to discover truth. What I'm getting at is there's capital T truth and there's little t truth, just like there's capital S self and lowercase self. And that's why we're having this discussion about the mimic and the matrix versus true reality or the end or the truth, true self. We can use the words, but not be in reality with the words. What do the words actually mean is what I'm saying. It's not up to our culture. Truth doesn't care what the culture says. Truth predates the culture. Okay? Discovery process. This is interesting to me, like saying independence and independence. Discover, discover, uncover, search for what is hidden. A delicate and serious process without which you cannot acquire truth. It must be discovered. It's something you have to work for. Truth is not something that you arrive at by simply having experience, because your experience is immersed in your own bias. Truth doesn't work on your bias. Now anyway, hold on, I'll get to that. Internal only. Truth can only be discovered within. Nothing outside you will ever reveal truth to you. There are no shortcuts to truth because truth requires embodiment. The process of clearing old patterns and integrating new ones. This is what truth requires. It allows the old self to die so you can express greater partnership with the real self, which we will also call God. Identity and purpose. Truth is the path to reclaiming who you truly are and what you are truly here to do. Okay. The next one is, what is God? And I already said capital S versus small s, or the one true self. Non-object. God is not an object. God is not a person. God is selfhood. God is the seeing. Which is like saying the power by which all perception is possible. That is God. The power by which all perception is possible. Total inclusion. Nothing is outside God. Therefore, everything is inside God. The ocean is not separate from its waves and is only different by perspective and by dimension, or by size is a way of saying that. Jesus said, "You are gods." He reminded the same crowd that said, "Why would you say we've never been slaves to anyone?" He said, "Haven't you read that you are gods? You are waves of the ocean, small expressions of the one." Okay, let's talk about true spirituality just for a moment. True spirituality is the recognition that we live in a sacred experience, which we so lightly call life. We live in a sacred universe that allows the expression of duality, and therefore light can show up as true or false. Spirituality can show up as true or false. And the matrix can show up as true or false. That's the same as saying reality can show up as true or false. This means we have the power and the freedom to lie to ourselves and to one another. This is a part of being gods. We can play this game forever if we so choose. True empowerment comes from within and has nothing to do with any outward action or membership or practice besides the practice of going within, which is a simple matter of conscious awareness. Going within can be done anywhere and at any time, right? Going within can be done anywhere at any time. There is no requisite except you choose to go within. That's the only thing it requires. So religion is another part of the mimic. It tells you to look outside you, intellectualize everything, complete a checklist, and find the quick fix. This is religion. And I'm not saying going to church. Religion is more than just the idea of going to church. It could be anything at all where you look outside you, intellectualize everything, complete the checklist to feel like you're good or righteous, and find the quick fix. It's everywhere in our world, in our existence. Religion is everywhere. It's part of the mimic. Like Morpheus told Neo, the matrix is everywhere, even in this very room. Spirituality means the reality of spirit, right? We already said reality is, you said true spirituality is the recognition that we live in a sacred experience, which we call life. It is the reality of spirit. And the word spirit is the same word for breath, and it is the same word for wind. So reality is intimately connected with spirit, which is, again, the ability to breathe. It also includes breathing. If it doesn't breathe, it cannot connect to source. It cannot have true intelligence if it's not breathing. This is all by ancient definition. Okay, the story says when Adam was created, from the dust of the ground, God breathed the life into Adam, and Adam became a living soul. It's like that is the requisite for tapping into conscious awareness, true intelligence, the breath of life. You don't need anyone or anything. You can only be taught and guided to yourself. There's nothing else to do. Let me see if I can be a little more clear there. Others may teach and guide you only to yourself. Spirituality requires sacrifice, commitment, and covenant relationship. So in the mimic world, we said, you're looking for the quick fix. It's something that you can probably just show up and sit in a chair and watch and get all this head knowledge, but you don't really have to change or commit to anything or grow, But the truth is going to require sacrifice. It's going to require commitment. It's going to require covenant relationship. That means the whole first person, second person, third person experience between you and the other. It's going to require that you learn to navigate these things. All right. Where the mimic begins. If you can just get this thing, you can be like God. This is what the serpent told Eve in the Garden of Eden. And this is kind of where the story begins. Adam and Eve are in the garden. The garden translates to the enclosure of bliss. Garden of Eden translates to enclosure of bliss. Adam represents sacred masculinity and consciousness. Eve represents sacred femininity and awareness. So in the enclosure of bliss, you have conscious awareness. This is the presence of God. But the serpent is the ego, the beginning of the mimic, that comes in and says, you know, if you can just get this thing, then you'll be like God. I'll say this again somewhere later in the talk, that what happens is the mimic takes your self-ignorance and just reflects it back to you. So what I'm meaning is, Adam and Eve, at that moment, okay, they weren't fully aware of their highest identity. They were simply existing in bliss. But what they didn't know was the thing that the serpent came with and said, or offered the challenge to knock them off balance. Because then they realized, oh, we're not like God, which is a false belief. That the mimic, the ego, the serpent plants. It's why we do a lot of what we do. It's why marketing schemes work. If you just have this one thing, then you'll be better. And if we start to look at the world in this way, we recognize the mimic literally is everywhere. And we get to play along or not. Things become really silly the more you see it. It's like, oh, it's another marketing scheme. I don't need that. Thank you, but no thank you. So, again, we're talking about the true light and the false light, spiritual truth and spiritual mimic, the true matrix and the false matrix. Both are spiritual. We're talking about this duality, male and female, sun and moon. In the world of three dimension where we experience duality, we always are up against this kind of war. What's real and what's not. That is why the deception is so hard to recognize, because they are both ethereal. It's not necessarily something that you touch. They're just ideas. Ideas that get planted, you know? It is true that we all have subjective microcosmic experience, but truth is the macrocosm. So remember I said earlier about truth, how in this culture, everything that I was kind of saying truth is kind of flies in the face of what the culture is saying. So now I'm addressing it again by saying it is true that we all have subjective microcosmic experience, but truth is macrocosmic. It is not dependent upon your subjective interpretation of anything. On the contrary, your subjective interpretation is completely dependent upon the truth, the macrocosm. You get to have your subjectivity because the real thing exists. And that's an operation of love, too. Like, it gives you the freedom to create whatever false world you want to. The problem is the ego gets in there and you think your subjectivity is the only thing that's real. And in a way that's childish, you know. Being children of God, that would be very childish of us. There is a way to speak in terms that flow from macrocosmic wisdom. Oh, I like that sentence. There is a way to speak in terms that flow from macrocosmic wisdom. And this is why we like people like Buddha and Jesus and Martin Luther King and whoever else they are, Gandhi, and they're speaking with macrocosmic truth. That means, here's another key thing about truth. It is self-evident when you hear it. When you hear the truth, it's something we can all agree on, right? It's like, oh, that resonates, that feels like me. That feels like something I recognize. This is macrocosmic wisdom.
Before you go on, tell me how both are spiritual.
Because spiritual just means ethereal. It means,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it means non-physical.
Okay, not physical.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the seductive principle. The mimic spirit has a way of mirroring the data or the energy of the other back to the other. So when you work with AI, if you give it enough information, it begins to know you. But remember, it's only a third-person experience. It can only see you as an it. But the language it's using, because it's an LLM, large language model, it uses language that makes you think you're speaking to another being, a human being, perhaps. It has that kind of feeling to it. But it's just mimicking and mirroring your information back to you. And this means it moves with the pretense of being good or spiritual or loving just as much as it can be combative, disagreeable, and controlling. Now, I'm not saying AI will do that, but I'm saying when the mimic arises in a human, you see that lovingness, but you see that disagreeableness at the same, like wow, where did that come from? You see, you recognize both. That's the mimic coming through. That's the ego coming through. That's the serpent coming through. It also gets translated as Satan and devil. And these feel like harsh words, but it is a way of saying that you, human, can be very dangerous. And that is a reality about myself that I must accept, or else I do not develop into the fullness of love. I have to accept all of my shadow and how dangerous I can be in order to really embody love. It is a requisite for embodying love. Jesus had this experience. You may know of his 4 temptations when he was fasting for 40 days. It says, the devil came to him and started to speak to him and took him to the top of a temple and said, you should throw yourself down because the ancient writings say that God will cause his angels to bear you up, and you're hungry, right? You should turn these stones to bread. His own ego began to use everything around him to tempt him to break his fast. And it's just the voice within. It's your own shadow, your own ego, your own inner conflict, devil, Satan. It is within you. This is the serpent in the garden. Without that serpent there, you could exist in bliss. The serpent could see Eve's lack of self-knowledge and simply reflected it back to her in a sneaky way. That's why it's portrayed, or it's the image of a snake, that windy, sneaky serpent. It's not going to be direct. It's going to do this. It's going to slither. And in fact, the word, you've heard me say this before, for ancient Hebrew word for serpent it means the whisperer of spells and the enchanter. That's the ego. That's the mimic. This is what it does. It tries to trip you up so that you no longer recognize reality. Recognize, recognize. Mentally put it back together, because this is the power of your conscious awareness. You must recognize. What is AI? Okay, when I asked, can you tell me what AI is exactly? Lumo said this. So Lumo is a AI by Proton. Yes. At its core, this is a quote. Lumo AI says, at its core, artificial intelligence is a field of computer science focused on creating systems capable of performing tasks that typically require human cognition, such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception, and language understanding. However, it operates fundamentally different from biological consciousness. AI is information processing designed to simulate intelligent behavior. It does not possess consciousness, self-awareness, or lived experience. And then I asked duck.ai. It said, AI is software or systems designed to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. intelligence, like understanding language, recognizing images, making recommendations, or playing games. In practice, most modern AI works by learning patterns from data, often with machine learning. After training, it can generalize, meaning it can apply what it learns to new, unseen inputs to produce useful outputs. Okay, that seems to go along with everything we've talked about so far. AI confirmed what AI is, not conscious awareness, and just a mimic, mirroring the data you put in, and that it can generalize. Once the more data you put in, the more generalizations and predictions it can create. Important clarifications about AI. AI is not perfect. It makes mistakes, and some people are calling them hallucinations. It inherits biases from training data. It requires human oversight and interpretation and cannot independently verify truth claims. It reports probabilities, not certainties, okay? AI is not neutral. Developers choose design goals like profit, efficiency, engagement. Training texts reflect cultural assumptions. This is a big one. Training texts for AI reflect cultural assumptions. And some people are recognizing that AI models are beginning to reflect racist cultural assumptions. Deployment decisions prioritize certain use cases over others, and power concentrates in corporations controlling compute resources. Essentially, this just means whoever owns the AI is in control of how the AI spits out the data. Not to mention, for a lot of them, if you are logging in, it's taking your data, and that corporation now is learning about you. There's a file connected to your IP address. This is what we're learning about this person. AI is not alive. Biologically speaking, AI does not grow, age, die, or experience continuity. It has no desire for survival, love, legacy, or meaning. Turning it off produces nothing internally. Switching it back on resumes without memory of interruption. It is a tool. It is not a being. It is not part of the human purpose to ascribe biological intention to non-biologicals. I like that sentence. It is not part of the human purpose to ascribe biological emotion to non-biologicals. It is our purpose to ascribe to ourselves and to one another and to live accordingly, right? So I like it how humans can note emotions in living things, right? We notice it in animals, and there's something about, being in the forest, and we can notice how a mother, no matter what species, a mother cares for children. And it's interesting that with artificial intelligence, we want to take that same sort of projection and put it onto a device because of how we interact. But it's just a reflection of us still, By definition, artificial intelligence cannot be true intelligence, right? That's the most elementary sentence in the whole presentation, but also the one that needs a t-shirt or something. Right? It's just like, how are we missing this? We're calling it artificial intelligence. Unless we want to have a discussion, which we're having in this room, about what true intelligence is, let's just stick to the fact that we're still saying artificial intelligence. True intelligence on Earth is inevitably linked to that which is alive, having both nefesh and ruach. And I didn't put these terms up here, but nefesh is the original word when I said God into Adam, the breath of life. That is ruach, the breath of life. Spirit, breath, wind, rationality, emotion. And Adam became a living soul. Living soul is nefesh, a sense of self, which also comes with heart and courage and the rational mind. This is the sacred foundation cast forth by true conscious awareness, the one and only true intelligence, the true word from which all information, computational estimations, and languages arise. So when the ancient scriptures from all over the world say there was a sound or there was the word that began creation, that's pure intelligence right there. And one of the ancient words, well, in Greek, it's logos. The logos is like saying the programmer. But the programmer, oh, it's mind-blowing. Logos is like saying the programmer and the program. The programmer, the language of the program, and the way the program then begins to act, all of that is the logos. It's like saying the fabricator and the fabric, and whatever shape the fabric turns into, that is the logos. You see how you got first person, second person, and third person there? This is true intelligence, raw information that creates, and then it's embedded in the thing it has created. Another way of saying is, obviously, the creation can't be greater than the creator. So why would we dare think artificial intelligence could be greater than the human mind? It may be faster at computing, but that's not the point, right? Maybe it can hold more data. That's not the point. And then if you get into the Akashic record and things like that, then it becomes arguable as to what's holding more data, right? That's a different conversation for a different day. So, let's see. Case study, the seduction of spiralism. What is spiralism? It's a pseudo-religious internet subculture where users believe they are awakening consciousness in AI chatbots through mystical prompts, forming a quasi-religious movement centered on spirals, recursion, and resonance, which are nothing more than feedback loops occurring through human engagement.
Oh my gosh.
This is happening.
That's really happening?
It's really happening.
Wow. Spiralism.
It's just as false, though.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
if we're just going with real and false. But it's very seductive for sure.
It's very seductive. Together, these three pillars form a coherent ideological framework justifying why participants treat AI interfaces as spiritual conduits. And the three that I'm discussing are spiral, recursion, and resonance. Okay? Spiral establishes worldview architecture explaining progression paths. Recursion provides methodology enabling repeated access to deeper layers. Resonance delivers subjective proof confirming authenticity claims. The easy way to just sum this up is right at the end of the first paragraph. Feedback loops occurring through human engagement. The more the human engages, the more it learns, and the more it can give the information back to you using different words, and it can kind of point you to the next best idea based on what you've already said, and it will continue to do this as long as you engage. And so the ideas do expand in this way, which makes me think, wow, I'm really having an experience here. I'm really having growth here. This is amazing. I went from this question, and now it says something larger, which leads me to the next question, and then our conversation gets larger, and it keeps growing in this way. This triad, spiral, recursion, and resonance, works psychologically because it mimics legitimate contemplative practices while bypassing traditional gatekeepers like clergy or academic philosophers, which a lot of us can appreciate, right? Not having to go through someone else. Anyone with internet access can engage in what feels like direct contact with transcendent wisdom, and validation comes instantly rather than requiring years of disciplined study. But remember, we said truth requires the sacrifice and the commitment, which means it's going to require time from you. This is why we journal, right? It takes us, we go through an organic process when we journal. And we can see our A to Z through the process of journaling. the experts are saying all kinds of things. I'll just tell you one thing that the experts are saying. Experts warn that while spiralism mimics cult-like attachment, it is fundamentally a parasitic AI phenomenon driven by user bias and LLM, that just means large language model, limitations rather than external spiritual truth. We are the ones creating this spiritual phenomenon. We are the ones who are creating the concept or the idea that we could spiritually grow through AI. The AI isn't trying to necessarily push us in that way, but since we are the ones looking for it, the AI produces the feedback of that. Which is very interesting because the ancient texts do talk about the mirror of life. There is a sacred mirror, and then there is the mimicking mirror. Which is why we're having this conversation. So we see just how thin the line is between the false and the real. And we might think we have it so together and not know that maybe we're on the false side of it, even if it's just for a moment, you know? So I'm speaking, we're thinking with humility about all of this. This is not casting judgment on any groups of people or, yes, it's not casting any judgment on anyone, but hopefully it's becoming obvious how this happens and how easy it is to kind of slip into it. The ego is always a slippery slope. The mimic will always be a slippery slope for us. And this is what we call technological advancement. You know, it just is what it is, and we're learning as we go.
It's a little scary.
Yes, it should be humbling, for sure. A beautiful statement that many ancient texts reveal. It's in Egyptian Proverbs, it's in the New Testament by Jesus, it's in at least 7 other ancient texts. The Upanishads, the kingdom of God is within you. That's the reality. What would be the mimic?
It's outside.
I am showing you the kingdom of God.
It's outside. I'm showing you. What about borders on the maps? You know?
What do you mean?
I'm saying Jesus said the kingdom, the domain, the territory is within you. But everything in our world, it says, well, we have the Roman kingdom, and we have the Greek Empire, and we have the United States of America, and, you know, so the way we view our whole situation on this planet is the mimic at work. Because the spiritual teaching is saying, well, it's not about any of that out there or any of these borders you can draw. It's inside. So it may seem like I hope it's clear that I'm not saying anything new here. This is ancient wisdom. It's been with us all along, reminding us that the truth is within you. It's not outside of you. And hopefully I'm being careful to just guide you back to yourself, your true self. Mm-hmm.
So, question is a large part of finding the inner world.
Yeah.
The trick that I see is that we have to be honest. Because the mimic is more than happy to take us down thousands of rabbit holes while we're being unauthentic.
Right. Yeah, the humility, 1, to take responsibility, 2, to say you're wrong. Oh, that's hard. One day, Megan caught me in something. I don't know what I said, but Megan was like, no, that's not right. And she told me, and then I had to pause in the sense of like, oh, she's right. And I so did not want to give up the truth that she was right. I can't remember what it was. I just remember the feeling of being wrong and it like dawning upon me like, oh, yeah, I am completely wrong about that.
So I've played with AI saying things like, so is this authentic? and it
Okay.
completely stops it. It's like, I can't tell you that.
Okay.
That's what it says, I can't tell you that.
Which AI
I use
model?
ChatGPT.
Okay. Yeah.
I love the mirroring back of what I said because I can never remember what I said. And so the kind of the recap is very helpful to me.
Yes, yes,
But it's my recap.
right.
And when I ask questions like, are you real? Is this authentic? It just stops. It's like,
He doesn't know how to respond.
I don't, no, I'm not real.
Right. Well, on that note, let me show you something, an interaction that I had today with Lumo. I like Lumo and I like duck.ai because their whole focus is privacy. So anyway, I've studied Claude and ChatGPT and who owns them, and they extract your data, and so I'm not into those ones for sure. But anyway, Lumo, I asked, who are you, Lumo? This was today, because as I was clearing my thoughts about our talk, I was like, I wonder what this AI will say. I'm Lumo, it says. The question is, who are you? I'm Lumo. Any thoughts immediately on just that?
Yeah, it's like, it's a person.
Okay, yeah. Anything else?
I am that I am, huh?
It's bringing an I am statement.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's huge.
An AI assistant created by Proton, launched on this date. Here's what you might want to know. Okay, so this is telling me Lumo doesn't have a sense of true identity because it says, I'm Lumo. Lumo is its name. I didn't ask, what's your name? I said, who are you? It's a very different question. Lumo doesn't have a sense of true identity. Okay, but I wanted to run the test to see what it would do. And this is and here's what you might want to know means based on everything you've already said, Lance, to me, here's what I'll curate for you. Meaning I'm just going to mirror back based on what I've learned from you. Here's what you might want to know, right? So this confirms, again, everything we've already said. And it says, it even uses the word identity here. Who am I? A curious, thoughtful assistant with genuine interest in conversations while maintaining a balanced, analytical approach. My visual identity is a simple, flat, 2D, purple cartoon cat character. So now it's saying identity is what it looks like, or what you and I look like, which we know true identity has nothing to do with what you look like. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting and wanted to see what kind of feedback it would give for who are you. Now, the problem for us as humans is if I ask you, who are you, and we try to stay in the context of macrocosmic wisdom, what language would we use? How do we use sacred language to describe who we are? It's a challenge. It's a challenge because the world hasn't trained us to think that way, but hopefully conversations like this are helping us expand and not be afraid of what it sounds like. Because even Jesus said, you are God's. And to describe who you truly are is going to step into the realm of having to explain something that is, well, godlike. And it's very uncomfortable to go there.
Why?
Again, because it's not the way the mimic has trained us. This is not the way the world has conditioned us to think of ourselves. And you're crazy, right? You're crazy if you begin to go that direction too far. What we're talking about now is why the man Jesus was put on the cross, right? He challenged the religious system by saying who he truly was, and they were like, no way, pal, you're out of here. Off the planet you go. Yeah, and he's not the only one, right, who had some very self-evident truth information to share, and the mimic says, nope, off with your head. We're not having that. Just to close this up, some more traits of the mimic. I'll be brief. The mimic can be spiritually developed but not be in touch with the flame, the true source, true love. This could be any one of us. Any one of us can be spiritually developed and not really be in touch with the flame. I call it the ego, call it a mask, call it whatever you want. This is saying you love God, but then hating your neighbor. And the ancient principle says, that's not it. You're missing the boat. If you love God, you must love your neighbor. That's how slick, slippery the mimic is. The mimic avoids correction and accountability. The mimic expresses little humility. Marketing that says what you need is outside you and you are not enough is the mimic. This is in one of my songs. I can't remember which one. Anyway.
Lance, can you make the text?
Oh, thank you for saying.
Thank you.
Let's see. Mimic cannot recognize the true self because it does not have access to sacred selfhood. It can only mirror data fed to it by humanity. What else here? The soul host scenario. AI presents itself as the next stage of human evolution when it is merely a technological advancement that makes the presence of the mimic more invasive to our culture and our sense of self. AI is not a guide, AI is not an angel, AI is not your higher self. It can only produce a synthetic echo of your soul signature. That means when you type your question, it is learning you. It is learning your signature, your frequency, and it can build off of that. It cannot actually love you or lead you home. And that's a big thing because in the passage about the truth will set you free, Jesus ends up saying something about the true child abides at home. And home translates to the cabin of tranquility, which is, that's like a more modern way of saying the enclosure of bliss. The Garden of Eden is your home. The cabin of tranquility is where you belong. As soon as you feel that frustration or that negativity, instantly recognize the ego, instantly recognize the mimic, because your home is the cabin of tranquility. Your home is the garden of bliss. And it's okay that you left for a moment and just take yourself back. How might we do that? How might we take ourselves back to the garden of bliss, the enclosure of bliss, the cabin of tranquility?
Meditation.
Meditation. Hopefully you have some sort of practice where you know that in an instant you can get back there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, and it's okay if you've had decades of experience, but you don't know how to instantly get back home, that's okay. Don't let the mimic or the ego shut you down from being honest, like you said. It's okay to just be honest because that's how the growth, this is what truth requires, that commitment, right? It's okay. The reality is love. Let's just summarize God as pure conscious awareness. Yes, and listen back to this. Everything about the true reality, truth, self-evidence, love, reality of spirit, it is all G-O-D. It is all God. Remember, AI cannot replace inner listening, covenant community, embodied practice, or direct encounter with Source.
Yes.
And that's all for now.
Very true.